A Grown and a Vow, Princess Leonor 2025 Denmark wedding unites nations. They said royal duty was colder than love, that crowns couldn't coexist with hearts. But in 2025, in a single breathtaking moment beneath the skies of Copenhagen, Princess Leonor of Spain proved them wrong. Because when she stood before the altar in Denmark, no longer the young heir Spain once watched grow, but a woman ready to lead, the world saw something extraordinary. A grown princess. A vow spoken not only to her beloved, but to her people. And a wedding that didn't just unite two souls, it united two nations. Spain held its breath. Denmark opened its arms. And the future of Europe shimmered in that single royal kiss. The world had waited for this. For months, speculation circled through royal watchers and global press. Why Denmark? Why now? But the truth was more poetic than political. For years, Leonor had quietly built ties with Crown Prince Christian Circle through her studies and diplomatic training. Both heirs, both symbols of a modern, open monarchy, and both determined to bridge history with the present. Now, in 2025, as spring swept across Northern Europe, that friendship had grown into something larger than tradition could contain. It became love, a love that defied expectation and changed the course of royal history. From the first light of morning, Copenhagen was electric. Thousands filled the cobbled streets near Christiansborg Palace, flags of red and yellow fluttering alongside Denmark's white and red cross. Choirs rehearsed. Bells chimed. The sound of carriages echoed like the heartbeat of history itself. Inside the Amalienborg Palace, Princess Leonor prepared in a room lined with Danish roses. Her reflection in the mirror was calm, poised, but deeply human. Her eyes shimmered with something Spain hadn't seen before, not just confidence, but peace. Her gown, crafted by Spanish designer Inés Martín Alcalde, was a blend of both worlds, Spanish silk and Danish lace, symbolizing unity sewn into every thread. A hand-stitched emblem of the two nations intertwined rested delicately on her sleeve. It wasn't just fashion, it was diplomacy in fabric. When she stepped out into the courtyard, time seemed to freeze. Spain's Queen Letizia wiped a tear. Denmark's Queen Mary smiled with quiet pride. And in that shared look between two mothers, two queens from different corners of Europe, the meaning of this day became clear. This was more than a royal ceremony. It was the beginning of a new European story. As Leonor's carriage glided through Copenhagen, crowds erupted in applause. Danish children waved Spanish flags. Spanish tourists sang softly in the streets. It was a vision no one thought they'd see, two nations once distant, now connected by joy. And when the golden carriage reached the cathedral, the air shifted. The bells of Our Lady's Church rang across the city, their sound rolling like thunder over the rooftops. Inside, dignitaries, royals, and world leaders rose to their feet as Leonor entered. The organ began to play. Every step she took down that aisle was heavy with meaning. Every gaze fixed on her not just as a princess, but as a future queen representing unity in a divided world. The ceremony began with a silence so pure, you could hear the faint echo of her dress brushing the marble floor. At the altar stood Alejandro, the quiet diplomat from Madrid whose life had become intertwined with Leonor's since her early royal training. His expression was steady, his love evident. Many had doubted him, some said he wasn't of noble blood. But today, every doubt vanished. Because when he saw her, the heir to the Spanish throne, radiant in light, he didn't bow to her crown. He reached for her hand like any man would reach for the love of his life. And in that simple gesture, centuries of royal distance dissolved. As the vows began, you could feel Europe leaning in. I, Leonor de Todos los Santos de Borbón y Ortiz, take you, Alejandro, to be my husband. Her voice was clear, steady, mature, and full of conviction. This wasn't a child of monarchy speaking. This was a grown woman, aware of her duty, aware of her power, aware of her heart. When Alejandro replied, his tone mirrored hers, honest, loyal, full of warmth. And when the archbishop declared them husband and wife, the cathedral erupted, not in stiff applause but in genuine joy. Spain cheered. Denmark roared. The bells rang. And a new royal chapter began. The moment the couple stepped outside, the scene felt cinematic. The streets of Copenhagen erupted in confetti. Trumpets blared. The royal balcony was draped in both nations' colors. Leonor waved to the crowd, radiant, confident, her new wedding band glinting in the sunlight, and for a brief, powerful moment, every Spaniard watching back home felt a surge of emotion. This was not just their princess anymore. She was a bridge, a living symbol that even in an uncertain world, unity was possible. That night, the royal reception was nothing short of legendary. Inside Christianborg Palace, chandeliers sparkled over tables lined with gold-trimmed glassware. Guests from across Europe toasted not just the couple, but the future they represented. King Felipe stood to speak. His voice was calm but full of emotion. "Today," he said, "Spain and Denmark share more than friendship. We share family, and in this union, we find the strength to lead with love." The room erupted in applause. Queen Margrethe smiled knowingly. For decades, she had witnessed monarchies rise and evolve, but even she admitted later that this union felt different. More human, more modern. Outside, Copenhagen glowed under fireworks that painted the sky in gold and crimson. The couple shared their first dance beneath a canopy of roses, the melody echoing softly through the palace gardens. Every eye was on them, yet they moved as if no one else existed. In that moment, Spain's royal duty and Denmark's royal grace melted into something timeless, two people who found each other beyond borders. But behind the perfection, there was also struggle. In the months leading up to the wedding, intense negotiations took place between the two royal households, everything from the order of titles to the flag arrangements. Advisors argued. Protocols clashed. Some old voices within Spain's court even warned against the match, fearing it could blur national identity. But Leonor stood firm. Her message to her council was clear: if love cannot represent Spain, then what can? Those words would later become the defining quote of her reign. As the celebrations continued, something magical happened across Europe. Cities lit up in solidarity. Spanish plazas and Danish squares filled with cheering crowds watching the ceremony replay on giant screens. From Madrid to Copenhagen, from Seville to Aarhus, people danced in the streets. Political analysts would later describe it as Europe's emotional reset. Because this wedding wasn't just a royal affair, it became a symbol of connection in an age that desperately needed it. And perhaps the most unforgettable moment of all came at midnight. As the palace celebrations faded, Leonor and Alejandro slipped away to the courtyard, the air cold, the moon hanging low. There, surrounded by candlelight and roses, they took off their crowns and simply held hands. No guards, no cameras, just two people who had promised the world something rare: hope. Witnesses say she whispered, "Today, we didn't just marry each other. We married our nations." The next morning, the world's headlines were unanimous. A groan and a vow, Spain and Denmark united in love. Princess Leonor's wedding sparks a new era for Europe. From heir to leader, the Queen of Hearts is born. Even those who once questioned the monarchy found themselves moved. Because this wasn't politics. It wasn't performance. It was proof that royalty, when grounded in humanity, could still inspire. Days later, Leonor returned to Spain with her husband at her side. As they stepped onto Spanish soil, thousands greeted them with tears and cheers. She smiled and waved, the young woman who had once been seen as a girl of promise now walking as a woman of power, grace, and love. That image, of Leonor and Alejandro hand in hand, would become the defining symbol of Spain's new age. Because when all the glitter fades, and the music stops, what remains isn't the crown, the gown, or the grandeur. It's the vow. A vow to love. A vow to lead. A vow to unite. Princess Leonor's 2025 Denmark wedding wasn't just the union of two hearts. It was the moment a continent remembered its humanity. The grown princess became a queen in spirit. And her vow became Europe's hope.